I used to be willing to throw my integrity out the window, say yes to things I didn't want to do, say things were okay with me when they were not. If people would say, "How are you?" I'd be like, "I'm fine," when I was dying inside.
Hello and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. I'm Jenny Townsend, your host. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited for you to be inspired to live your life fully, to take ownership of your time, your schedule, and your life, but most importantly, learn and grow and develop personally and professionally. Myself and others are going to share life lessons that we've learned through leadership, through heartache, through pain, through struggles, and we'll be sharing some success stories with you as well. Super eager for you to dive in, learn, and grow. And once again, just take ownership of your life today.
Hello and welcome to the Stroke It podcast. Jenny Townsend, your host. I'm excited for you to be here today. My guest is Barb Nangle. You are going to learn tons from her. We're going to be talking about boundaries. She's going to be sharing a 12-step framework as well. She has over 40 years of therapy and personal development experience. She found her 12-step recovery at the age of 52. What began as a journey to address codependence soon expanded to include recovery from intergenerational dysfunction, childhood trauma, and compulsive overeating issues that she hadn't initially recognized in herself. Decades of personal development had merely scratched the surface. Recovery melted the iceberg of her life. So she's going to be sharing with us how to cure our wounds, build healthy learning boundaries that will transform our lives, and much more. Barb, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful to have you here and share your journey.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I do want to make a correction. You said I was going to share my 12-step framework. The 12 steps of recovery are not my framework, and that's not what I'm going to share. It's just that that's where my big transformation happened. Okay. Though I'm happy to talk about 12-step recovery. Some people know all about it. I think if they do, they've heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was the very first 12-step recovery program, but it highly influenced my life. But so I'll just go into just briefly my story. So you alluded to it there. So I'm 62 right now. 10 years ago, when I was 52, I hit a codependent bottom. And I can explain what that means later if you'd like me to. And what happened was that I invited a homeless friend that I met through church to stay at my home during a snowstorm. I now know that is not normal to invite a homeless person to stay in your home. And he did, and they stayed another time and another time. And within a few weeks, he was practically living with me. And then I eventually felt trapped in my own home. He was an addict, an alcoholic. Looking back now, I think he may have also had some kind of mental health or personality disorder, because this guy messed with my head in a way I had never had before. I had never experienced before. And one day I was in therapy and I was talking about him. And in mid-sentence, I went, "Oh my God, do you think I need to go to Al-Anon?" And my therapist was like, "Yes." And so, speaking of 12-step recovery, Al-Anon is a 12-step recovery program for the loved ones of alcoholics. And many people think, why do the loved ones of alcoholics need a program of recovery? And there's a few reasons. One, alcoholism is a family disease. It's not just the person that's drinking that has a problem. It's everybody around them. Because what happens when we have an addict or an alcoholic in our family is we start to engage in behaviors that we think are going to help the problem, but they actually tend to make it worse. So we start trying to do things to get them to stop drinking, to get them to go into rehab, to go to, detox, to go to recovery meetings, etc. So we start engaging in controlling behaviors. We make everything about them. We get resentful of them. We start ignoring ourselves and put all of our energy on them. And then they get resentful of us. And then they start blaming us for the drinking and all that stuff. So when she said, "Yes, should I go to Al-Anon?" I was like, okay. So I went home and I put Al-Anon into Google. But this word codependent came up. And I was like, what is this word? Now, I have been, as you said, I've been in therapy since I was 15. I've read 7 gajillion self-help books, workshops, how could I never have heard of this word before? And it took me a while to wrap my mind around what codependence is, but it's essentially someone who's codependent is focused on that which is outside themselves. So what are other people doing or not doing? What do people think of me as opposed to what do I think of me? How can I fix this? Like, I'm only worthy if I contribute. The classic codependent is in a relationship of some kind with an addict or an alcoholic and really makes everything about them. And so I got into Codependence Anonymous and very quickly felt a sense of relief. And it was because I found out what was going on with me that answered so many things. And then found my way into another 12-step program called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, which to this day is my main program. That is a trauma recovery program where you reparent yourself and you use the 12 steps to recover. I had no idea I qualified for that program. And then a year after that, I decided to let go of Coda and found out that I was a compulsive overeater and got into Overeaters Anonymous. And I learned so many things about myself that never came up in all those previous decades of work. And I think that because my core wound is codependence, when I learned how to build healthy boundaries, which I did in recovery, sort of through this meandering haphazard path. It's not like somebody would sat me down and was like, we're going to build boundaries. It was a byproduct. But because my core wound is codependence and boundaries are the antidote, when I learned to build healthy boundaries, it changed everything. I was working full time at Yale University at the time, and there was like this ripple effect on my team. And I was like, wait a minute, none of these people are in recovery. What's going on? And it just goes to show that when one person changes the dynamics of their interactions, it changes everything around them. So I got laid off from Yale after a couple years in recovery, and through a series of serendipitous events, started my own coaching and consulting business, started my podcast right away. That's called Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. Not thinking it would have anything to do with my business. It was really like, oh my God, there's all this wisdom in recovery that I never heard of. Let me get it out into the world. And then eventually decided to niche into being a boundaries coach. It just made sense for me because they were such a game changer for me. And then all the clients I'd worked with had needed help with boundaries. I was really good at helping people with boundaries. And so I've developed this full-blown coaching program. My flagship program is a 12-week private coaching program. My ideal client are women, professional women who say yes when they really want to say no, and who neglect themselves because they're so focused on others, because that's former me. That's what I was like. So I know I've said a lot in there. I could go on, but I want to pause so that we can take this in whatever direction you'd like to go in.
I want to take it in all the directions. Like, I know you submitted the form, and I'm like, ooh, like, this is all really great stuff, and I really want to follow that. But honestly, I want to go into the codependency. Can you give us some signs or traits that we may identify with that would maybe not say that we're codependent, but we could align with?
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe this is maybe what I need to work.
Yeah. So if you're walking around full of resentment at other people because they're not doing things the way you want them to do, or because you think that you put in way more work than they do, and they've, like you, or you give them advice and they never follow it, or you feel like they're taking advantage of you, you may very well be codependent. If you even think about setting limits with other people and you are riddled with guilt and shame, you may be codependent. If you are way more invested in someone else's life than they are, you may be codependent. If you do things to help rescue, fix, and save other people that are to your own detriment or that are against your own values, you may be codependent. One way that I personally think about it, Jenny, is I have an addiction and it's to people. That's what I think of a codependence is. So those things that I shared with you are like indicators that you might be codependent.
Okay, so full transparency, I identify with a lot of those things. So
Okay.
why would someone that wants to help other people or believes in other people or the other things, why are they labeled codependent?
So you get to label yourself codependent. It's not really something that somebody else can do. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to say someone's an alcoholic. They get to decide if they're an alcoholic. So it's not something, a label that you would give to someone else. But it's really about, are you doing it because you truly choose to do it? Are you doing it out of some sense of obligation? or a compulsion. That was for me, some of it was obligation. It was more like a compulsion. Like I felt obligated to volunteer for things. Like I have got to give back to community. It wasn't a choice for me. I wanted to be helpful. But so let me just back up for a second and say, like, I was really confused in the beginning too. And I remember saying to this woman in Coda, okay, I think I'm starting to get that there's this continuum of helpfulness whereby on one end, we've got kindly, helpful, functional, healthy behavior. And on the other end, we've got this dysfunctional, unhealthy, rescuing, fixing, saving, enabling behavior. And I'm starting to see the difference between those. I think I get, because there's a stark difference. It's in the middle that I get confused. For example, what's the flip from I'm just being regular helpful person to I'm rescuing? And the woman said to me, well, Barb, it really depends. Why are you doing it? Are you helping them because you want to be helpful? Or are you helping them because you want them to like you? And I was like, I'm totally doing it because I want to be helpful. Well, Jenny, that question percolated in my mind and I was like, oh my God. It wasn't that I want them to like me, it's that I want their approval. So for example, I want them to think I'm helpful. For me, I thought I'm nice. I'm a nice person. That's why I help people. And it doesn't mean that I did want to help people, but just wanting to be helpful doesn't explain me over giving to the point where I'm exhausted, being resentful of people all the time, running away from people that I know are going to ask me to volunteer again for something else, and being mad at them like, I can't believe she just asked me for the 18th time to volunteer. Well, she asked me for the 18th time because I said yes 17 times, right? So what I learned was that I was an approval seeker. I learned that I was a people pleaser. I had never heard the term people pleaser until I got in recovery. And when I heard it, I was like, not me. That is a lie. I'm so much of a people pleaser. So what shifted for me, the big giant shift that happened for me that enabled me to go from 50 something years of no boundaries to having such healthy boundaries that I now coach people, is that I've come to care more what I think of me than what other people do. And that doesn't mean, Jenny, that I don't care what people think about me. Of course I do. It means that I used to be willing to throw my integrity out the window, say yes to things I didn't want to do, say things were okay with me when they were not. If people would say, how are you? I'd be like, I'm fine, when I was dying inside. So I did a lot of lying. And then I learned people pleasing is actually manipulative behavior. If you're going about the process of doing something to get someone to think certain things of you, that is called manipulation. So I'm manipulating and I'm lying. That is not being in integrity. And here I was worried about people thinking I would be a bad person if I said no. Meanwhile, I'm lying and I'm manipulating, which if you made a list, what do bad people do? Probably lying and manipulating would be on the list. Mm-hmm. So I'm no longer willing to throw my integrity out the window for you to like me. Like I want you to like me, but I don't, with claws, need you to like me or approve of me or think that I'm nice or think that I'm helpful. So what I heard somebody say, which I love this, it is fine to seek other people's approval, but only if you have your own approval first. So if you're going to do something to get someone's approval and you feel really good about it, have at it. But if you're going to feel like shit about yourself to get someone's approval, please don't do it, because you can't get your integrity back. Like once you give that away, you can't get it back. And what's interesting, Jenny, is I thought I was a woman of integrity. I thought I was an honest person, and I got in recovery and it was like, wow, there's so much I don't know about myself, despite my 50 something years of introspection.
My mind blown.
Okay, good.
Well, I'm just thinking when you say codependency, you just think that you need someone to be there all the time. You're not thinking about all the actions that you're doing, the why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and what you're really seeking. And, when I think about the approval, I think so many of us do things because we do want approval. We do want people to like us. We do want people to think positive things about us as well.
Yeah, of course we do. Yeah.
So where we sacrifice ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you were going through this process and you started saying no. I'm sure that was really hard. So talk us through the no process, and then we're going to get to the boundaries. So talk to us about that first.
Yeah, so no was way down the line. I did not start with no. So, like when I started setting boundaries, I didn't know that was what I was doing. I really didn't. But the first time that I very specifically remember, it was a boundary with me. So I was at work at Yale and I opened up my personal Gmail for some legit reason, and there was an email from my ex boyfriend. And normally I would see it, I would be mad at him for interrupting me, even though I'm the one that opened it, because I had this compulsion because of my long-standing codependent relationship with him that I have to respond to him right away. So I would open it up and I would read it and I would get mad and I would reply to it right away because of the compulsion. And I would type out something like this long and I'd be completely derailed. And so the first boundary was don't open the email until you have the time and the space to do. I think of it as having the psychic space. So the first boundary that I remember setting and knowing this is me setting a boundary, I didn't open an email. So it started with things like that. And so here's what happens no matter what kind of boundaries you're setting when you first start, you start to have a lot of feelings. So I had feelings like, oh my God, he's going to think I'm a bad person. Now, Jenny, I am not dumb, but I needed people to say, Barb, he doesn't know when you open the email. He's not going to know if you've read it. And you get to reply on your own timetable. Like, this is how deep this codependence goes, that it overrides my intellect and doesn't help me understand this man can't know whether I've read the email or not. And so I started having feelings, and that the feelings are the main reason people don't set boundaries or they cave on their boundaries, because they get feelings, typically guilt and shame, that are so overpowering that they can't handle them because they have not learned how to manage and process and feel feelings, because we suck at that in this society. And so a huge part of what I do as a boundaries coach is help people work through the feelings, because it's easier to work through the feelings when you're in your office by yourself and having feelings about an email that you don't open than going to someone and saying no to them for the first time and wanting to die because you think they're going to hate you or fire you or whatever. So for me, the feelings was really, really important, as it is for everybody. As I got better at setting boundaries, I learned so many things about myself. Like when I got good at boundaries, people were like, Barb, how did you know what your boundaries were? And I was like, that's a really good question. And I thought about it and I was like, oh, it's based on what's important to me, like what matters to me. And so what I do, Jenny, is I start my clients there. I'm like, we're going to go through an exercise for you to come up with your top 5 values as a way to anchor your boundaries. Because if you are making decisions and setting boundaries in alignment with your values, that brings you into integrity with yourself. Because frankly, most of the people that I work with are like me. They think they're women of integrity and they're not, because they violate their own values all the time for other people, or so that other people will think they are a woman of integrity, which was me. So I think, managing the feelings was really hard. I had to do, to this day, I'm still working on the feelings. Also, I happened to learn how to build boundaries while I was in a small 12-step group with 3 other women. I don't think I understood for a couple years how important their support was to me. I needed them to say things like, keep your hands away from the keyboard. You're not a bad person, Barb. You deserve to set this boundary. You might not want to say it that way. Like, I depended on them so much, and I don't think I really understood how important having these other people on my side was. They metaphorically and sometimes literally held my hand through the process, and I with them as well. It was really helpful to go through the process with other people. Getting to say no, for some people, something about that word itself is just, like it won't come out of their mouth. And so I learned to come up with all different kinds of ways of saying no, like, I'm not going to make it. That doesn't work for me. I can't right now. so that if you can't say no, you can come up with a bunch of other ways of saying no. So I know I said a lot. I hope I actually answered the question that you asked me.
So you did. So I want to talk about like the different ways. Did you feel at first when you said that won't work for me or I can't right now, did you feel like at first you were giving people excuses?
No, I felt like I was setting a boundary with them.
Setting a boundary with them. Okay.
Yeah,
So someone that may think that it is an excuse or they sound like an excuse, it's actually creating a boundary to serve yourself, not
right.
the other person.
Right, yeah, and that there's so many myths about boundaries, and people think that they're for other people. They're not. They're for you. And so what people don't come out and say this, but this is what they think. They think if I have healthy boundaries, I will be able to control people. I've got a news flash for you. Boundaries are about controlling yourself. So not caving in when you set a limit with people, not giving in to people just because they browbeat you into it or because they try to guilt trip you into it. If you have a boundary and or like if you say, you set a boundary with someone and they don't honor it and you don't do anything and you just go forward as if you never said anything, that wasn't a boundary because you didn't have some kind of like consequence for them not honoring it. I tell my clients, you're hoping and wishing that they'll listen to you. That's not a boundary.
Right.
A boundary is a limit. Like I have standards in my life. That's what I think of, like that's the foundation of boundaries. And then I have limits for myself and other people to uphold those standards. So for example, I have neglected and abused myself for decades with, excessive, like I drank abusively until I was in my early 40s. I smoked bales of weed, cigarettes, compulsively overeating, toxic relationships. So health is really important to me now because I was so bad to myself. So I have standards for my health and I have limits for myself. Like I don't stay up past 11 o'clock at night anymore. I don't stay up all night watching TV because good sleep is a foundation for health. It's really hard to be healthy when you don't sleep well. I have limits for other people. For example, you cannot smoke in my house. If you smoke in my house, like it's not going to happen. Like
Yeah.
it's not. But if it did, you're leaving. You're putting it out and you're leaving.
Smoked in people's houses.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man. So when you're talking about these boundaries and you're setting them for yourself, not for other people, is there a part of you that feels guilty when you set these boundaries?
Not anymore. In the beginning, all the time.
But in the beginning. So can we go back to the beginning too? Because I feel like this may be new for people. People are like, I can't do that. I'm not ready for that. Or if they did try it in the next week and then they felt really guilty, how are you handling the guilt? How are you dealing with it? How are you moving past it?
Yeah. So there is no healing without feeling. So if you feel guilt, then you need to feel the feeling. Allow yourself to feel it. You may feel like it's going to kill you. It is not. And then like getting rid of the guilt and shame with boundaries is a long game. It's not a quick fix. It doesn't have to be like years long, but it's about the values that I talked about in the beginning. Because when you are standing firm about things that matter to you,
Are you looking to enhance your relationship with yourself? If so, get the Stroke It Guide. My book is available on Amazon and on my website. Not only is my book going to help you with your personal journey with yourself, but it's also going to help you with the relationships of other stakeholders in your life. For instance, your spouse or partner, your employer, your employees, your friends, or your family members. And of course, because the title, there is a chapter for your pleasure, which is the last one, in the bedroom. The book offers lots of great tools and resources. There's a lot of great downloads, and it features many of my podcast guests, and they have thousands of downloads and resources that are worth a lot of money. So you're going to want to get my book today. You can buy that on Amazon or on my website, and you can change and take ownership of your life today with one simple click.
it's like you're situated in yourself, you're grounded in your very being. And so if somebody wants to criticize you because you care about your health, it's kind of a lot easier to take when it's something that really matters to you. I'll give you an example. So last week, one of my clients told me her son is in college in a fraternity and they had an event with the moms and the sons. And they were all around this big table. And one of the things that came up is somebody mentioned about his roommate having a mental health issue. And a bunch of the moms said some shitty things about, like, that's not our problem, blah, blah, blah. And my client spoke up and said, wait a minute, we absolutely need to be talking about these issues. Young men especially need to be talking about these issues because it's so hard for them. And she said, Barb, I can't even believe that I said that. Like, I can't, like, I've never done anything like that before. And I said, what do you attribute that to? You know, part of it is she's been coaching with me, but it was really because it's a really important issue to her. And she was not going to back down about it. She's had mental health problems, and she has family members that have mental health problems. And she thinks she wants to be a mental health advocate at some point. And so, like, it just went to show, like, when you, like, you really care about something, you're much more likely to stand up for it. And so when, if other people judged her, it's like, go ahead and judge me for advocating for mental health for my son and his friends. Like, I'm not going to feel guilty about that. But it takes time. Like, the first time that you set a boundary around something you care about, it doesn't mean you're not going to have guilt. But the more you build healthy boundaries, which is really about getting to know yourself, determining what is okay with me and what's not okay with me. What do I like, want, need, and prefer? Because most people with poor boundaries don't have that. They don't know, where do I end and other people begin. They don't know the boundary of me because they're bleeding into other people and other people are bleeding into them. And so they start to figure out, okay, this is where I end and other people begin. You get to really know yourself, and you start setting boundaries for yourself. And it feels really good to stop doing things you don't like doing, which means you have more time to do things you like doing, to stop doing things that drain you and do more things that energize you. So you give yourself a life that you actually enjoy. And it's pretty easy to love somebody who gives you a life that you really enjoy. So I always thought of myself as, like, I have high self-esteem. I'm this motivational, inspirational, positive, glass half full person. And, you know, those things are true. And at the same time, I had a lot of negativity, a lot of beating myself up, ruminating, catastrophizing, complaining, blaming, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I also didn't love myself. Like, that, I know. I didn't realize that. I really and truly love myself. I trust myself. I never trusted myself before. And when I look back, I'm like, what was the process that got me to love myself? What was the process that got me to feel worthy? What was the process that got me to trust myself? It was building healthy boundaries. It was a step-by-step process, or an iterative process might be a better way to put it. And I grew to really love myself and to feel worthy. And I treated myself like I'm worthy. And so now, it's very easy for me to set boundaries. And I used to, like, get a complete flood of guilt and shame. And every once in a while, I might get a tiny little trickle. But most of the time, I'm like, you know, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that as well. So let's talk about building some of those healthy boundaries. So give us a couple examples that would be a healthy boundary that we could create that maybe won't scare us or say that we can't do it, that will provide some really great love and care for ourselves and ultimately serve ourselves. So give us a couple examples of some healthy boundaries.
Yeah, so there's no one boundary that everybody should have. There just isn't. You know, everybody's different, but I think, you know, like, taking good care of yourself is, like, what fuels you. So for me, it's conscious contact with my higher power, sleeping, eating nutritionist food, nutritionist. Yeah, nutritious. Yeah, I made up that word, nutritionist. You know, eating healthy food, like, those things fuel me. So I already mentioned, you know, I have a boundary. I don't stay up past 11 o'clock at night. I'm in a food recovery program, so I eat 3 meals. I eat 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. And I don't eat other people's food. So I don't eat off of other people's plates. I don't share things with people, you know, because of my history of compulsive overeating. So, and then taking care of yourself. I've been through some pretty bad depressive episodes in my life where like I didn't even brush my teeth every day. Dry shampoo was like my best friend. I picked up the clothing. I'm like, does it smell? Okay, no, then I'm gonna wear it. Like I hang up my clothes when they're done. I don't leave them laying around my floor. I bathe every single day. I brush my teeth every single day. Like to me, that's maintenance. That's not even self-care. But some people, they're not at the point where they can even do self-care. They can't even do the maintenance kind of stuff if their mental health is really poor. But I would say, what happens, and I think this is especially true for women and even more so for women who are moms, that they sacrifice themselves for everybody else. And so what they do is they try to pour from an empty cup, which you can't do. And so what I want people to do is pour from the overflow. Well, the only way you have overflow is if you fill your cup first. And so that means we have to tackle this idea that it is somehow selfish to take care of yourself. It's not selfish. It's self-preservation. It's selfless, because when you're pouring from the overflow, you have so much more to give. And so it's selfless because you have more to give. And if you're a mom and you're self-sacrificing and running yourself ragged, you're basically teaching your family, I'm expendable. And if you have daughters, you're teaching them, and when you grow up, you'll be expendable too. And they're not. And you're not expendable. So boundaries around self-care, like what kinds of activities can you do that bring you joy, that bring you energy? What kinds of things can you stop doing that are draining you? And I know people often say, I have to do this. No, you don't. You may feel like you have to, but you don't. So what I recommend is changing your language. I get to do this, or I choose to do this. So you don't have to do things. It's not that you must do things. It's that you get to do things, or you could do things. It's not that you should do something. I could do that. And what you're telling yourself when you use the get to and the could language is, I have a choice. And when we learn to build healthy boundaries, one of the many things we're learning is that we actually have way more choices in our lives than we actually think we do. So all this, the controlling that we're trying to get other people to, we're trying to control people around us, we actually start putting that towards us, and we control ourselves, and we realize, oh my God, I have way more control over my life than I ever thought that I did.
Yeah, that's amazing. It sounds like an amazing journey, and it seems like you've been through a lot to get to where you
Yes.
are today. So I want to say thank you for
Yes.
sharing and being so vulnerable,
Yeah.
letting us into a little bit of your life as well. So you had indicated the healthy boundaries really helped you with all the relationships. First and foremost, yourself, and then your partner, and then your
Mm-hmm.
family. So can you kind of give us a little bit of insight to what that means?
Yeah. So in terms of myself, like I said, I thought I had high self-esteem, but when I got in recovery and I looked at all my patterns of behavior, it was like, that is not a woman who feels worthy. So I feel worthy now. I've already kind of talked about that. And I like, for me, like one of the types of boundaries that I teach about are called boundaries. I call them boundaries of self-containment. So these are things we either need to contain or stop doing. For me, they were hands down the most impactful boundaries. I had no idea how many things I was doing to create drama, to create chaos, and to exacerbate the already existing chaos on around me. So for example, I would complain a lot, or I would give people way too much information, and like they'd be like, I don't know what to do with that, or I would over explain things to people, and I would essentially give signals to people like, I'm not really a healthy person. I don't have healthy boundaries. So that meant healthy people moved away from me and unhealthy people came close to me. Some of my boundaries of self-containment that really only affected me and not other people is all the negative, like catastrophizing, ruminating. I didn't even know I was doing that, Jenny. Never, how could you stop something when you don't know that you're doing it? But I came to see, so I contain that. So now, as soon as that stuff comes up, I change the channel. Like I fix that. So, those are some boundaries with some that's affected my relationship with me. Like I have like an infinitely better life. And then I am now in the only healthy romantic relationship of my life. I was 55 and he was 60 when we met. We've been together for 6.5 years. And I had no idea that this was possible. I had a long string, let's call it a rope, of dysfunctional relationships before, and I truly believed it was them. I didn't like when I did my inventory about relationships in 12 step recovery, it was really clear that I was like, in every, if he would only fill in the blank, then the relationship would have been better. And that showed me that I believed that I had nothing to do with the status of any of my relationships, which is crazy. Like I literally believed I was responsible for all the good things in the relationship and they were responsible for all the bad things, which is laughable. And, most people understand it only takes one person to change a relationship, but they're mistaken in that they believe the one person is their partner. It's actually you.
I
Like,
just want to add into that 100%. Actually, it's someone that I know. They were with someone and they were like breaking up with them. And they're like, they just need to change and they need to do all these things. And I was like, hello. Have you looked in the mirror? Have you looked at yourself? Have you acknowledged your actions, how you show up for yourself, how you show up for them? And then, so they broke up. But anyway, so they ended up getting back together and like, they're like both so happy and it's like because they think the other person changed, but in actuality they both changed for themselves
right.
first, and then it's really impacting the relationship. So I'm
Yeah.
going to say I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And I think, people say like, well, what is it about boundaries that make you be able to be in a healthy relationship? And it's that I know who I am. I know where I end and begin. I know what's okay and not okay with me. And then I communicate that. So as soon as something bothers me, I say it immediately. I do not let it fester. I do not build it up and then explode because there's 15 million things. So in the past, what I would do is not say anything to my partner. And it was like I'm putting a brick into a wall between me and them, and the wall would get higher and thicker, and then I would explode. And in my mind, I was blaming them for everything. And I just don't like, I own my shit, and I say, this isn't working for me. Or he'll say, I have an upset. So we actually communicate like what's going on with each other. We don't make the other person responsible for our happiness. Like when we have poor boundaries, we're looking for stuff on the outside to fix us on the inside when that's our job. Then when it comes to my family, so I grew up in a dysfunctional family. That's why I'm in ACA. And so I have a thread of a relationship with my older brother, and then he has two adult children, one of whom I haven't heard from since a Zoom call on Christmas 2020, and I have no idea why. And he is 28, and his other child is 25. I have a thread of a relationship via text. But what happened when I got into recovery, I started to realize I don't have to deal with this stuff. Like the holidays, I was like, oh my God, I hate being here. And I realized I was trying to control them and I wanted the holidays to be the way I wanted them to be. And like my first holidays season after getting into recovery, I thought I could be like, I could say to my brother, like, I don't want to talk politics and I would really like you to talk quieter because my ears hurt. And I thought he would be like, okay. And I thought that's what setting boundaries was. No, that's called controlling people. And it's not a thing. Like, that's not a thing that you can do. So I realized, like, I would repeat myself and be like, yeah, I don't want to talk politics. And can you talk a little quieter? And I realized, like, number one, he's incapable of either one. He can be quiet for like 5 seconds, but he's just a very loud person. And then he lives and breathes politics. And I don't want to talk about it. And even though I agree with him politically, it's not something I want to talk about. So I realized, wait, those are my boundaries. I'm the one that doesn't like loud talking. I'm the one that doesn't want to talk politics. So what am I going to do? Well, I can't turn him into someone who doesn't do those things. So I decided I'm going to spend less time with him. I'm going to spend time with him less frequently. And it's turned into 0 time. So I haven't seen my brother since the pandemic in person. He lives an hour from me. It's not like he lives on the other side of the country. So those are my boundaries for my family. And I've realized over time, as I've had less and less and less and now no contact with him, how much energy I had to put into being around him. I had to prepare myself to get there. And then I had to do all the repair work after I left. It was like going into a war zone for me because we have so much baggage and our patterns are just like, ugh, in each other. So, and then friends, as an older woman, like what's her name there, Mel, Robbins is, talking all about like older women having a hard time like making friends. I think people have a hard time making friends, except for children, because that's just what they do. And what happened for me when I started having healthy boundaries, I lost a lot of my friends because they were people that were in my life because I did all the work. Like I chased them. And so when I stopped chasing people, I stopped seeing them. And so it was like, oh crap, this doesn't feel good. But I really want to be friends with people that want to put as much effort into the relationship as I do. So I don't dislike or I'm not mad. I just know like this is who they are. But it makes sense because I was codependent and I'm not anymore. So we don't fit anymore. And so now most of my friends are women in 12-step recovery or other women entrepreneurs. And like I have a lot in common with them, but both of those groups of women are all about like I want to be a better person. They hold themselves accountable. They are always moving forward. They're about bringing other people forward with them. Like those are the kind of people that that I want to spend time with. And last year I set a goal for myself that I didn't know what it was going to be exactly, but I knew like friendship is going to be up at the top. And so over time, I decided I'm going to pick 3 friends and I'm going to cultivate those relationships. And what I realized is that there were a couple women that were kind of on the periphery of my life that I realized I wanted to bring into the center because they're women who I really like who they are. I like who I am with them. I like their responsiveness, their sense of humor, like all these things about them, but they've been on the periphery of my life. And I'm like, I think I want to bring them in. And when I talk to my clients, that seems like something that I'm not the only one that we end up bringing people from the periphery more to the center. And it's because I am not going to put more effort. I'm willing to put a little bit more, but I'm not willing to put in 90% of the effort to a relationship the way that I was before. So that's a boundary for me. Like I need you to be with me. There needs to be give and take. So that's like a bunch of different kinds of relationships.
Yeah, I think those are all really great examples. I think we can all connect with you and align with like, oh yeah, with my family, like my brother's same thing, really loud, obnoxious and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, if you're going to be at an event, I'm like, I love seeing them, but like for 5 minutes and I'm good. And with my family, I have very dysfunction. And then it's like, I have a lot of people that I just learned are codependent in my family. I know you said I can't label them, they have to label themselves, but I would label them as codependent. And I, when I was on my recovery, like I went through some stuff that I was going through a lot, and I would call people. Not that I wanted to talk about myself, but I would just call to check on them. And then they would dump all their things on me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through all my own stuff right now. I can't listen to yours and deal with mine. And so I had to create a boundary. And, I basically had to stop taking phone calls, or I would only call when I'm in the car when I had like 5 or 10 minutes, where it was like, I'm calling because I care for you and I want to say hi and I want to see how you're doing. I have 10 minutes in the car. That way, they weren't complaining about all the things that really didn't matter, like their trees in their yard or like the neighbor next door and all those things. So I felt like creating those boundaries. And it was really challenging for them as well. But at the same time, I needed to do that to sort myself at that moment. And creating those boundaries really within my family allowed me to heal and focus on what I needed so that I
Absolutely.
myself as well.
Right.
And, with the friends is, I think a lot of us can understand that too. And I think, if you don't have children, maybe you don't meet a bunch of moms that have children as well, or maybe it's a little bit easier. But then again, moms are feeling each other and they're just kind of mean to each other too. So it can get really, really lonely, especially if you're a business owner. Like I'm a business owner, it gets really, really lonely. Not everybody wants to talk business, right? They want to talk about all other things. So, finding your community and really focusing. And I think, in your 20s and 30s, you want all the friends and you want to be all the places. And I think when you get to your 40s and 50s, it's like, I just need a handful of friends that I can be myself with, that love me for me. And at the end of the day, I don't even tell them. So,
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely.
100%. Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, me too.
You shared a lot of great wisdom. I think a lot of us can connect with your story and your journey. And I know that I learned tons from you. And I think most importantly, I think creating boundaries is key to our own happiness as well. I think a lot of times we are people pleasers. We want to serve all the other people. And, we think that we're doing it for them, but maybe it is for ourselves as well. So, if people were listening today, which they are listening, if there was something that you could say to them that they would inspire them to take ownership of their life or create a boundary or see the change or create the change that they want to see, what would that be?
Well, this is not something I normally say, but it came up based on what you were just talking about. And that is that I actually give more hours per week of community service now that I have healthy boundaries than I did when I was a volunteeraholic, but I do it by choice rather than obligation or compulsion. I do it strategically rather than at the drop of a hat. And I do it after filling my cup first so that I'm pouring from the overflow and not from an empty cup. So I would say make choices. Don't do things out of obligation or compulsion. Do it strategically. Decide ahead of time how many hours a week or what are the causes you're going to give to, and then everything else falls by the wayside. And fill your cup first so that you're pouring from the overflow. And you can give generously and sustainably. That's the thing. It's wonderful. Like if everybody gave, everybody would be taking care of everybody else and nobody would need to take care of themselves. But it doesn't work that way because there's a lot of takers out there. Right?
Yeah, there are a lot of takers out there for sure. So thank you for sharing that. So, okay, so if our listeners want to connect with you, they want to create the boundaries, they want to be transformed, they want to be part of your program, part of your world, how do they connect with you?
So if they just want light touch, then the best place to follow me on social media is on Instagram. It's at Higher Power Coaching. My podcast, I have 313 episodes, so that wouldn't necessarily be a light touch because you can literally binge listen. 40 something episodes are about boundaries. That's at fragmentedtowhole.com. And then if they really want to go deeper, if they're really looking to change these patterns, then they might want to sign up for a call with me. I call it a 30-minute Better Boundaries call. So that's at barbchat.net. They can go to that and sign up for a call with me. And that's where we basically look at like, where are you at? Where do you want to be? How might I get you there? And then would we be a good fit? Like, is me and my program a good fit for you? And are you a good fit for me as a client?
Awesome. Well, listeners, you heard how to get a hold of her. So thank you so much, Barb, for tuning in. Thank you to all of our listeners. If you connected with Barb or you think that what she shared today would benefit one of your friends or family members, consider forwarding this to 5 of them as well. If you really love what we're talking about, consider giving us a 5-star review. We look forward to hearing what boundaries you create in the future for yourself. Make sure to fill up your cup, as Barb said. And thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you for tuning into the Stroke It podcast. I hope you were inspired. I hope you're willing and ready to take some action. I want to encourage you to consider 5 people that could benefit from today's podcast. Super simple to share this episode. You never know who could benefit from hearing this podcast and how you could inspire them to create the change in the life that they're wanting. Cheers, and thank you so much for tuning in. Also, consider giving a